My life had been a carefully organized collection of small, predictable moments. My days were a steady rhythm of 8 a.m. lectures, stale coffee from the campus kiosk, and evenings spent hunched over textbooks at my small, cluttered desk. My apartment, number 2C, was a cozy but unremarkable shoebox, nestled in a quiet, 3-story complex just a few blocks from Portland State University. I had lived there for 2 years, and the most exciting thing that had ever happened was the time Mrs. Chin from downstairs accidentally left her cat, Whiskers, in the hallway overnight. Whiskers was fine, just a little grumpy. My world was a simple, beige landscape and I was content with it. I thought I was, anyway. Then he moved in. I had heard about him before I ever saw him. He was a myth in the college hallways, a topic whispered about in hushed tones by every student with a pulse. The new transfer student. A senior. Rumors said he was a genius, a star athlete, or maybe both. Girls described him as a god walking among mortals, a storm of dark hair and even darker eyes. I rolled my eyes at the gossip, more focused on my upcoming microbiology exam than on the latest campus heartthrob. My reality was equations and chemical bonds, not some mythical new guy. My reality shifted, shattered even, the morning a beat-up moving truck pulled into the parking lot. I watched from my window as 2 men wrestled a heavy sofa out of the back, their grunts echoing in the quiet courtyard. And then I saw him. He moved with a grace that felt out of place, a predatory sort of stillness even as he directed the movers with a nod of his head. He wasn't a myth, he was a force of nature. His hair was a midnight black, falling just over his intense, dark eyes. He was broad-shouldered and lean, every movement radiating a raw, effortless power that made my breath catch in my throat. I felt an undeniable magnetic pull, a kind of primal hum that seemed to resonate deep in my bones. It was the same new student. He was my new neighbor in apartment 2B. My crush was now my next-door neighbor, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say my life was about to change. That first week was a whirlwind of near misses. I would hear the click of his lock just as I was fumbling for my own keys, or I would smell a rich, earthy scent, like fresh pine and rain, just as I was getting on the elevator. The air around our 2 doors always felt charged, thick with an unspoken energy that made my skin prickle. It was unnerving but also thrilling. Our official first meeting was in the cramped laundry room in the basement. I was folding a load of towels when the door creaked open. The scent hit me first, a wave of that same pine and rain, stronger this time. I looked up and there he was, holding a basket of dark clothes. His eyes, dark as coffee grounds, locked with mine. It wasn't a friendly, neighborly gaze. It was an intense, all-consuming stare that felt like it was stripping me bare, seeing past my messy bun and worn-out sweatshirt to something else entirely, something he recognized. "I'm Marcus," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the small room. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, of ownership. I felt my cheeks flush. "Sophia," I managed, my voice a small, reedy thing compared to his. He didn't say anything else. He just watched me, his expression unreadable as he loaded his clothes into a machine. The silence stretched between us, heavy and awkward. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a hummingbird trapped in a cage. I wanted to run but my feet felt rooted to the floor. There was a dangerous intensity to him, a wildness that my quiet academic life had never prepared me for. He was a storm and I was just a little house, and I had a terrifying feeling I was about to be blown away. From that day on, the world I knew began to fray at the edges. My calm, predictable life started to feel observed. I'd be studying late at night and catch a glimpse of a shadow moving outside my window, a flash of something too big to be a stray cat. I'd be walking home from class, and the hairs on the back of my neck would stand on end, a prickling sensation that told me I wasn't alone. My rational mind told me it was my imagination, a byproduct of stress from exams and late-night caffeine. But my gut, a part of me I had always ignored, told me something else entirely. It felt like a constant, watchful presence, an invisible tether that was somehow connected to the new neighbor next door. The tension between us only grew with each encounter. We'd pass in the hallway and he'd give me a curt nod, his eyes still holding that same unyielding intensity. Once the fire alarm went off in the middle of the night, a false alarm from a burnt casserole, and the entire building was standing outside in our pajamas. I shivered in the cold night air, wrapped in a thin robe, and saw him standing a few feet away, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked at me and I felt a sudden warmth, a protective shield that seemed to emanate from him and cut through the chill. It was a bizarre, illogical feeling, and it scared me more than the fire alarm had. I started to get weirdly protective of my space, of my privacy. I felt like his gaze was always on me even when he wasn't there. I'd catch myself closing my blinds with a little more force, or checking my front door twice before bed. He was dominant, protective, and dangerous all at once. And despite all my apprehension, I found myself thinking about him, about the way his presence made the world feel different, sharper. I was a moth to his dangerous flame, and I knew with a certainty that chilled me that I was going to get burned. The breaking point, the moment my rational world completely unraveled, happened on a Tuesday night. I had just finished a particularly grueling study session and decided to relax with a hot bath. As I was getting ready to get in, I noticed it. Something was different about the wall behind the tub. The old wallpaper was peeling slightly, and in a small patch of exposed drywall, a symbol had been etched. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was there. 3 interlocking circles with a triangle in the middle. I stared at it, my mind racing. Had it always been there? I felt a wave of nausea. I had lived in this apartment for 2 years. I would have noticed it before. A sudden, horrifying thought flashed through my mind. Marcus. The ring he always wore on his right hand, a thick silver band. I had only ever gotten a quick glimpse of it, but my memory, sharpened by my growing obsession, was crystal clear. It had a strange design, a design I couldn't place, and now the image of that symbol on the wall and the one on his ring merged into one terrifying, undeniable picture. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm. I stumbled out of the bathroom, pulling on a sweatshirt and jeans with shaky hands. The feeling of being watched was no longer a vague apprehension. It was a cold, hard fact. He wasn't just a new neighbor. He wasn't just a handsome guy. There was something dark, something ancient and mysterious about him, and I was somehow tied to it. The symbol was proof. A mark he had left. My quiet, predictable life was over. All I could feel was a cold, creeping fear and the undeniable sense that I was in a cage I had no idea how to escape, and my jailer was right next door. Chapter 1. The symbol on the wall was a brand, a mark of something ancient and terrifying, and it had been there all along. It was a secret I had unknowingly lived with for years, and now, in a single moment, it had shattered the safe, beige world I had so carefully built around myself. My hands were shaking as I pulled on a sweatshirt, the cheap fabric a flimsy shield against the cold certainty that had settled in my bones. I was being watched. I was being tracked, and it had everything to do with the man living next door. The symbol on my wall was a silent declaration of his presence, and I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, a frantic hamster on a wheel. I could call the police, but what would I say? My handsome, dominant neighbor has a creepy symbol on his ring, and I just found the same one etched on my wall? I knew, with a gut certainty that bypassed all logic, that this was something law enforcement wouldn't understand. The danger I felt wasn't a normal human kind of danger. It was something else entirely, something primal and old. My only option, the only path that made any sense at all, was to confront him. I needed answers, and he was the only one who had them. My feet moved on their own, carrying me from my apartment to his. The short walk felt like a marathon, each step a battle between my frantic fear and my desperate need to know. I stood in front of his door. The number 2B was a stark contrast to my own. I raised a trembling hand and knocked. The sound was loud and hollow in the quiet hallway. A few seconds passed, an eternity stretching out in the silence. Then the door opened. Marcus stood there, shirtless, a pair of worn jeans hanging low on his hips. The scent of pine and rain filled the air, richer and more potent than ever before. His dark eyes, which had always held a dangerous intensity, were now completely unreadable. He looked at me, taking in my pale face and wide, terrified eyes, but he said nothing. He just waited. I need to talk to you, I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. He stepped back, opening the door wider. It wasn't an invitation, it was a command. I walked inside, and the door clicked shut behind me with a finality that made me jump. His apartment was as minimalistic as mine was cluttered, but the air felt charged, thick with a powerful energy. It was a living space, but it also felt like a fortress. "What is it, Sophia?" he said, his voice a low rumble that made the hair on my arms stand on end. I held my hands out, palms up, trying to stop their violent shaking. "The symbol," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "On your ring, the one you wear." His gaze dropped to my hands, then back to my face. His expression didn't change, but I could feel a shift in the air, a sharpening of his focus. "What about it?" I just found it," I said, my voice cracking with the effort of holding back tears. "Etched on the wall behind my bathtub. It's the same. What does it mean? What have you done?" He took a step closer, and I instinctively took a step back, hitting the closed door. There was nowhere to run. He was too close, too big, too much. I haven't done anything to you, Sophia, he said, his voice softer now but no less intense. But you're right. That symbol, it's mine. It's the mark of my pack. And it's a promise of protection. My mind spun. Pack. What are you talking about? What's going on, Marcus? The shadows, the hushed conversations. I feel like I'm being watched all the time. He sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to come from somewhere ancient inside him. He ran a hand through his dark hair. You are being watched. By my wolves. They protect the perimeter, our territory. And they've been protecting you. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. Wolves? What are you talking about? He walked to a sleek, modern table in the middle of the room and leaned against it, his eyes never leaving mine. I'm not just a man, Sophia. I'm a werewolf. An alpha. The leader of this territory. And the moment I saw you, I knew. You're my mate. The words hit me like a physical blow. The world I knew, the simple beige world of textbooks and coffee, dissolved into dust. Werewolves. Mates. It was something from a fantasy novel, not something that happened in a quiet apartment complex in Portland. I shook my head, tears finally starting to fall. No, that's crazy. That's not real. It's real, he said, his voice low and firm, leaving no room for argument. And it's why you feel what you feel. The pull between us, it's the bond. It's what connects us, what makes us meant to be together. My fear was a tangible thing, a heavy weight in my chest, but through the terror I could feel it. The pull, the undeniable soul-level connection that had drawn me to him from the start. It had always been there, a silent hum beneath the surface of my reality. He wasn't just a crush. He was a fundamental part of my existence, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. The hushed conversations you heard, he continued, that was my pack. My beta Julian and my warrior Atlas. They're my closest friends, my most trusted wolves. They've been here with me watching over you. He paused, his gaze softening just a fraction. They're my family, Sophia, and you? You are part of that family now. I stumbled over to a chair, my legs giving out from under me. I sank into it, my head in my hands. The room was spinning. Wolves, alphas, mates. It was too much. So all those things, all those feelings, it was real? I wasn't going crazy? No, he said, his voice a gentle reassurance that did nothing to soothe the panic. You weren't crazy. Your instincts were telling you the truth. You're part of this world now. And the symbol on your wall, it's a mark of my protection. It means you are under my care. It means you are safe. Safe. The word felt like a lie. I felt anything but safe. I felt trapped. So, you've known this whole time? That I was your mate? He nodded slowly. From the moment I saw you on campus. My wolf? He paused, his jaw tightening. He recognized you immediately. We're drawn to each other, Sophia. It's not something we can control. It's not something we can fight. My eyes welled up again, this time with a mixture of fear and a profound, heartbreaking sense of loss. My quiet, predictable life was over. It was a casualty of a world I never knew existed, a world of supernatural bonds and primal urges. A world ruled by this powerful, dangerous man who now claimed me as his. I was no longer just Sophia, a college student. I was a mate. I was a part of a pack. And I had no idea what that even meant. All I knew was that the air in the room was thick with a new, terrifying reality, and I had just been given the truth. Now, I had to figure out how to live with it. Chapter 2. The words were still hanging in the air between us, heavy and impossible. Mate. My mind was a blank canvas, every single thing I thought I knew about the world scrubbed clean. All I could see was Marcus's face, his dark eyes filled with an intensity that had nothing to do with a college crush and everything to do with a powerful, primal claim. My quiet, simple life had been a lie. A comfortable, beautiful lie. Now the truth was an avalanche and I was buried under it. I tried to stand to put some space between us, but my legs were shaking so badly I couldn't move. Marcus took a step toward me and I flinched, a raw, involuntary reaction that made his jaw tighten. Don't, I whispered, holding up a hand. Just don't. I can't. This is too much. You're telling me you're a werewolf, that I'm your mate. This is insane. He stopped, but the space between us still felt charged, a live wire humming with an energy that I couldn't ignore. I know it's a lot, he said, his voice a low, steady rumble. And I know it's not what you wanted, but it's the truth. And we can't ignore it, Sophia. It's too important. Too important? I laughed, a short, bitter sound. My entire life is a lie and you say it's important? What about my classes? My apartment? My whole life. It's gone. I looked around his apartment, a place that had seemed so normal just a few minutes ago. Now it felt like a cage, a place built to hold me captive in this new, terrifying reality. I want to go home. This is your home now, he said, his voice firm, unwavering. He was no longer just the handsome, mysterious neighbor. He was an alpha, and his words were a command. My pack is your pack. This territory is yours. You are safe here. Safe. The word felt like a hollow echo. How could I be safe when everything I believed had just been turned on its head? The fear was a cold, sharp blade, but beneath it I could feel the pull, a deep, aching connection to him. It was a terrifying contradiction. My mind screamed at me to run, to scream, to reject this impossible truth. But my heart was being pulled closer, a compass needle pointing irrevocably toward him. It was an awful, beautiful feeling, and I hated myself for feeling it. He must have seen the struggle on my face because he took another step, a look of pain flickering in his dark eyes. I know you're scared, he said, his voice softer, more human. But I won't let anything happen to you. I'll protect you. You're my responsibility, my duty, my mate. I looked up at him, tears blurring my vision. Protect me from what? What is this really about, Marcus? It's not just about me being your mate, is it? He sighed, a heavy sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. He moved to the small couch and sat down, gesturing for me to sit on the opposite end. No, he said, his voice low and serious. It's not. I wanted to keep this from you for as long as I could. I wanted to let you get used to me, to us, before I told you everything. But you've already seen too much. He paused, gathering his thoughts, and in the silence I could feel the tension radiating from him, a protective aura so thick it was almost a physical presence. There's another alpha, he began, his voice hard, laced with contempt. A rogue. His name is Viktor. He's ruthless, power-hungry, and he wants what doesn't belong to him. He's been hunting for years, looking for something to give him an advantage over other packs. Something to make him strong enough to challenge me, to challenge every alpha who stands in his way. My blood ran cold. What is he looking for? I whispered, my heart now a frantic drum against my ribs. He's looking for a hybrid, Marcus said, his eyes locking with mine. A human werewolf hybrid. A person born with the traits of both, a being that would be more powerful than either. They are incredibly rare, a myth to most of our kind. He thinks that if he can sire one, he can command it, control its power. And with that power, he believes he can take over every pack in the Pacific Northwest. A cold dread settled over me, a chilling premonition that I knew was the truth. And he thinks I'm the key to creating one? Marcus nodded grimly. There's a prophecy, he said, his voice barely audible. An old one. It talks about a human with a rare dormant genetic trait. A trait that, if combined with the right alpha's bloodline, could create the hybrid he's looking for. My bloodline is the strongest in the region. It's why I'm the alpha of this territory. And you're that human, Sophia. He's known about the prophecy, but he hasn't been able to find the human. Until now. Until you and I met and our bond was formed. He's felt the ripple of our connection in the pack territory. He knows you're here. He knows you're with me. The world I knew collapsed completely. I wasn't just a college student. I was a target. A prize. My body, my very existence, was a pawn in some ancient, brutal game for power. The fear was a tidal wave, a monstrous thing that threatened to drown me. I was a girl who worried about finals and finding a good cup of coffee, and now I was the center of a war between two powerful, dangerous wolves. So, the feeling of being watched, I said, my voice shaking. It wasn't just your pack protecting me, was it? It was also his. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Viktor's pack is getting bolder. They've been watching, yes. Waiting for their chance. He's a coward. He won't fight me head-on, not yet. But he'll come for you. He wants you, Sophia. Not for love, not for any kind of bond. He wants to use you. He wants to create an abomination, a weapon he can control. And he won't stop until he has you. I looked at him, at the alpha who had so casually entered my life and destroyed it, and yet who was the only thing standing between me and this terrifying new world. My fear was overwhelming, but so was the connection, the undeniable pull that made me want to trust him, to lean into his strength. My life was no longer my own. It was a story of two warring packs, of ancient prophecies, and of a dangerous, soul-deep bond that was now the only thing keeping me alive. The quiet college girl was gone, and in her place was a woman who was a target, a prize, and a weapon. I was in a war and it had just begun. Days turned into a blur of heightened anxiety and strange new routines. Marcus became my constant shadow, never more than a few feet away when we were in the building. He taught me to recognize the different scents of his pack members, Julian's warm cedar smell, Atlas's sharp metallic tang, and to distinguish them from the unfamiliar, threatening odors that occasionally drifted through the corridors. I went to classes, but everything felt surreal, like I was watching my life through a foggy window. My professors' voices became background noise as I scanned every room for threats, every stranger a potential enemy. My friend Rachel noticed the change, cornering me after our chemistry lab one afternoon. "Soph, what's going on with you?" she asked, her brown eyes filled with concern. "You've been so distracted lately. Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just stressed about exams. You know how it is." She didn't look convinced, but she let it drop, and I felt a pang of guilt for the lie. But what could I tell her? That werewolves were real? That I was mated to an alpha? That another pack was hunting me? She'd think I'd lost my mind. The isolation was crushing. I'd always been independent, content with my small circle of friends and my quiet life. Now, I was carrying a secret so enormous it created a wall between me and everyone I'd once felt close to. Everyone except Marcus. He became my anchor in the chaos. Despite the circumstances, despite the terror and confusion, I found myself drawn to him more each day. It wasn't just the mate bond, though I could feel that thrumming beneath everything, a constant pull in my chest. It was the way he looked at me like I was the most precious thing in his world. The way he listened when I talked about my classes, genuinely interested even in the minutiae of molecular biology. The way he made me coffee in the morning, remembering exactly how I liked it without me ever telling him. One evening, about a week after the revelation, I was curled up on his couch with a textbook when he appeared with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "You need a break," he said, handing me one. "You've been studying for 4 hours straight." I accepted the mug gratefully, inhaling the rich, sweet scent. "I have an exam on Friday. I can't afford to fall behind just because my life has turned into a supernatural thriller." He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. "Your determination is admirable. But you also need to take care of yourself." "That's rich, coming from the guy who's been patrolling the perimeter every night and barely sleeping," I shot back. His lips curved into a small smile. "Touché." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping our drinks. Outside, night had fallen, and the city lights twinkled through his windows. It felt almost normal, almost like 2 regular people getting to know each other. "Marcus," I said quietly, breaking the silence, "what happens if Viktor gets what he wants? If he somehow creates this hybrid?" His expression darkened. "Then he'll have a weapon unlike anything our world has seen. Hybrids, in theory, would possess the strength and abilities of werewolves combined with human intelligence and adaptability. They could shift at will, unaffected by the moon's phases. They could blend into human society completely undetected. In the wrong hands, they could be unstoppable." A chill ran down my spine. "And he'd use them to what? Conquer? To dominate? To rule through fear and force?" Viktor doesn't believe in the old ways, in pack bonds and loyalty. He believes in power, pure and simple. If he controlled hybrids, he could topple every alpha in North America. Maybe beyond. I set down my mug, my hands trembling slightly. "Then we can't let that happen. We can't let him get to me." Marcus reached out, taking my hand in his. His touch was warm, grounding. "We won't. I promise you, Sophia, I will die before I let him touch you." The intensity in his eyes, the absolute certainty in his voice, made my throat tight with emotion. "I don't want you to die," I whispered. "I don't want anyone to die because of me." "This isn't because of you," he said firmly. "This is because of Viktor's ambition and cruelty. You are not responsible for his choices." But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was. That my very existence had set this chain of events in motion. I was the catalyst for a war that could claim countless lives. As if reading my thoughts, Marcus pulled me closer, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. "Listen to me. You are not a burden. You are not a liability. You are my mate, and you are the most important person in my world. Whatever comes, we face it together. Do you understand?" I nodded against his chest, letting myself lean into his strength. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of something other than fear. Hope, maybe. Or perhaps just the stubborn refusal to let Viktor win. Chapter 3. The world felt different after Marcus's confession. The constant, watchful presence was no longer a vague apprehension. It was a known entity, a physical weight in the air that made every breath feel shallow. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a paper-thin box, a fragile barrier between me and the darkness outside. The whispers and shadows weren't just Marcus's pack anymore. They were also the enemy, a rival alpha named Viktor and his ruthless wolves. I was no longer an ordinary college student. I was a target. The threats began subtly at first. The scent of pine and rain, Marcus's scent, was a constant reassurance around my building, but it was now sometimes tainted by a sour, metallic smell I couldn't place. I mentioned it to Marcus once and his jaw had clenched so tight I thought it would break. "Viktor is marking the territory," he had said, his voice a low growl. "He's letting us know he's here. He's challenging me." Then the threats became more personal. I found a dead crow on my doorstep one morning, its neck snapped in an unnatural way. The small, lifeless body was a message, a promise of violence. I screamed and scrambled back into my apartment, slamming the door and locking it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. When Marcus came over, his face was a mask of fury. He didn't say a word, just took the bird and tossed it into the dumpster, his body language a silent, terrifying promise of retribution. "He's getting bolder," Marcus said later, his voice tight with controlled anger. "He's trying to make you scared, Sophia. He's trying to make you run so he can grab you." The fear was a constant, living thing inside me. I couldn't focus on my studies, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every car that drove by, every creak in the hallway made me jump. My old life, with its simple worries about exams and coffee, felt a million miles away. I was living in a nightmare. One afternoon Marcus appeared at my door. He looked exhausted, his dark eyes shadowed, but his resolve was unshakable. "I can't protect you by just keeping you here anymore," he said, stepping into my apartment. "The walls are a temporary measure. Viktor isn't going to back down. He's too proud, too desperate. He's going to come for you, Sophia. And when he does, you need to know how to survive." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What are you talking about, Marcus? I'm just a human. I can't fight a werewolf." "You don't have a choice," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "And you're not just a human, not to me. You're my mate. The bond is a powerful thing, and it means you're connected to this world in a way you can't imagine. You have to learn how to defend yourself or I'll lose you." His eyes, usually so intense and dominating, held a deep, heartbreaking fear. That look, that raw vulnerability, scared me more than any of the threats. It was the first time I had seen a crack in his alpha facade, and it was for me. My training began that night. Marcus took me to the empty parking lot behind the building, under the cover of darkness. He taught me about their senses, things that had always been second nature to him but were foreign to me. "Your human ears pick up sound, but a wolf's ears hear things you can't even imagine," he said, his voice a low, instructional hum. "You need to learn to listen for the things you've always filtered out. The rustle of a leaf from a quarter mile away, the snap of a twig, the whisper of a wolf on the hunt." He taught me to identify different scents. The earthy, damp smell of his pack, which was now my pack. The sour, metallic smell of Viktor's wolves, which was the scent of danger. He'd stand at the edge of the lot, a dark silhouette against the streetlights, and I would close my eyes trying to separate the smells, to pinpoint the direction of the wind, to feel the vibrations of the ground. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of new information, and I felt completely useless. "I can't do this," I said one night, after failing for the 10th time to identify a specific scent. "I'm just human, Marcus. My body isn't built for this." He walked over to me and the pine and rain scent filled my senses, grounding me. He placed his hands on my shoulders, his touch a comforting weight. "Yes, it is," he said, his voice laced with conviction. "You're my mate. You have a strength inside you that you don't even know exists. You have to find it. You have to learn to trust your instincts, not your human logic." My training intensified. I learned about pack dynamics, about how to read a wolf's body language, about their code of honor and their brutal ways. The fear was still there, a constant companion, but now it was mixed with a new feeling, resolve. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a student. My life depended on what Marcus taught me, and I was a fast learner. The threats from Viktor's pack grew bolder. We found a dead doe on the grass in the courtyard, its throat torn out. A clear message. They were getting closer. The suspense was a palpable, living thing that had settled over the entire apartment complex. We were all on edge. Julian and Atlas became my protectors when Marcus couldn't be there. Julian, the beta, had a quiet strength about him, his presence calm and reassuring. He taught me about pack hierarchy, about the unspoken rules that governed werewolf society. "Every wolf knows their place," he explained one evening as we walked the perimeter of the complex. "It's not about dominance in the human sense. It's about knowing your strengths and using them for the pack's benefit. Marcus is our alpha because he's the strongest, yes, but also because he's the wisest. He makes decisions for all of us, bears the weight of our survival. And you're his second, I said. That must be a lot of pressure. Julian smiled, his green eyes crinkling at the corners. It is. But it's also an honor. Marcus saved my life years ago, brought me into his pack when I had nothing. I'd follow him into hell if he asked. Atlas the warrior was different. Where Julian was calm, Atlas was intensity personified. His training methods were brutal, pushing me to my limits and then beyond. Pain is a teacher, he told me after I'd fallen for the third time trying to dodge his attacks. It teaches you what not to do next time. Get up. I got up, my knees scraped and aching, but I got up. And I learned. The nights were the hardest. I'd lie in my bed, listening to every sound, imagining Viktor's wolves breaking through my door. Marcus often stayed with me, sleeping on my couch despite my protests. His presence was the only thing that allowed me to sleep at all. One night, I woke to find him standing at my window, his silhouette dark against the moonlight. I got up and moved to stand beside him. What is it? I whispered. They're out there, he said quietly. 3 of them. Watching. I peered into the darkness but saw nothing. How can you tell? They're set. Their heartbeats. He turned to me, his face half in shadow. They're not attacking yet. They're waiting for orders. For the right moment. The fear that had become my constant companion surged fresh and sharp. When will that be? Soon. His jaw tightened. Viktor is planning something. I can feel it. And then the night came. I was in Marcus's apartment, going over some basic defense maneuvers he had taught me when the world outside exploded into chaos. The sounds were guttural, inhuman, a mix of furious growls, splintering wood and shattering glass. The fighting was right outside. Marcus's face went white with fury. Stay here, he commanded, pushing me behind a concrete column in his living room, his body a solid shield in front of me. Don't make a sound no matter what happens. He was gone in a blur, a whirlwind of muscle and raw power. I could hear him fighting, hear the furious growls and the sickening sound of flesh tearing. I wanted to run, to scream, but Marcus's words, his command, were burned into my brain. I stayed hidden, my body a trembling mess, my hands clamped over my mouth to keep from screaming. The sounds of fighting moved away from the building, and for a moment, there was a terrible, agonizing silence. I waited, holding my breath, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. Where was Marcus? Was he okay? My mind screamed for him, for my mate, my Alpha. Then the door to his apartment crashed open. It wasn't Marcus. It was 2 massive, dark-furred wolves, their eyes glowing with a sinister yellow light. They looked like creatures from a nightmare, their teeth bared in a snarl. They weren't here for the fight outside. They were here for me. The pine and rain scent of Marcus was gone, replaced by the sour, metallic stench of Viktor's pack. I tried to scream, but the sound was choked in my throat. I tried to run, but they were too fast. They grabbed me, one on each arm, their claws digging into my skin. I fought, kicked, and thrashed, but I was nothing against their immense strength. My training, my resolve, my newfound courage, it all vanished in a puff of smoke. I was just a human girl, a prize to be won, and I was being dragged out of the only place I had ever felt safe. As they pulled me out the door, I saw a final flash of dark fur and a glimpse of Marcus's frantic eyes in the chaos outside, and then the world went black. Dear listener, if you felt the terror in Sophia's heart, if you've sensed the storm gathering on the horizon, then don't turn away now. Subscribe, because what comes next will shatter everything you think you know. Viktor's lair holds secrets darker than midnight, and the choice Sophia must make will determine not just her fate, but the future of every soul bound to Marcus's pack. The bonds of destiny are about to be tested by fire, and you deserve to witness every heart-stopping moment. Hit that subscribe button, and let's walk together into the shadows where monsters wait and legends are born. Chapter 4. The world returned to me in disjointed flashes of pain and cold. I was no longer in the familiar parking lot with the scent of pine and rain. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decay, a stench that clawed at the back of my throat. My head pounded with a fierce, rhythmic ache, and when I tried to move, my arms were pinned, held tight by a rough, unyielding material. The darkness was absolute, a heavy blanket that smothered every sense except the cold, hard stone beneath my cheek. I was a prisoner, a prize, and the last thing I remembered was the terrified look in Marcus's eyes. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the haze in my mind. I was no longer safe. I was no longer at home. I was in a place that reeked of violence and death, a place built by the very monster Marcus had warned me about. Sleeping Beauty is finally awake. A low, sneering voice rumbled from the darkness. I tried to turn my head, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. A pair of eyes, yellow and cruel as a predator's, materialized in the gloom. They weren't like Marcus's intense, dark gaze. These were full of an arrogant contempt that made my blood run cold. "Victor," I whispered, the name a raw sound in my throat. He laughed, a short, humorless bark. "The Alpha you're so desperate to get back to. Don't worry, little human. He'll come for you. And when he does, he'll find that you are no longer his to claim." He stepped into a sliver of light and I saw him fully for the first time. He was as broad and powerful as Marcus, but where Marcus held his power with a quiet, dangerous control, Victor wore his like a cheap suit. He was all muscle and swagger. His dark hair slicked back from a face that was handsome but utterly devoid of kindness. He was a king in a dungeon, a predator in his lair, and I was his prey. "You're wondering why you're here, aren't you?" he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You think Marcus is some kind of white knight who will save you from the bad wolf. But he's a fool. He sees you as a person, as a mate. I see you for what you are, for what you've always been destined to be." He leaned closer, his breath hot and foul on my face. "You are the key, Sophia. The key to power, the key to a new kind of wolf. A hybrid. The prophecy says a rare human, combined with the blood of a powerful alpha, can create a new species of wolf. One that will be stronger, faster, and more powerful than anything that has ever walked this earth. And that's what I'm going to use you for. You're not a person to me, Sophia. You're a prize, a vessel." He didn't give me time to process his words. He was a force of nature, moving with a cruel, efficient speed. He sliced his palm with a vicious-looking knife, a single deep cut, and held the bleeding wound over my face. I struggled, screamed, and fought with everything I had, but his strength was immense. He was a mountain and I was a blade of grass. He forced his blood into my mouth, and I gagged and choked as the metallic, burning liquid was forced down my throat. The pain came in a sudden, blinding flash. It wasn't the pain of a cut or a bruise. It was a searing, fiery agony that ripped through every cell of my body. My bones felt like they were shattering, my muscles twisting and tearing. My senses exploded, a brutal assault of sounds and smells I had never known. The scent of blood, 100 different kinds of fear from the wolves outside, the thrumming of my own new, furious heartbeat. My mind screamed, but no sound came out. I was being remade, ripped apart and stitched back together into something I wasn't. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The pain receded, leaving behind a humming energy, a new kind of strength I could feel thrumming beneath my skin. The darkness around me was no longer a total void. I could see in the blackness, see the damp stone walls, the dust motes dancing in the air, the cold, triumphant look on Victor's face. My senses were heightened, my body different. I had been turned. I was no longer human. Victor laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated victory. He moved toward me, his hands reaching for my neck, and a fierce, primal rage ignited in my belly. He had done this to me, had taken my life and my humanity. I was no longer a helpless girl. I was something else. A creature of power. A hybrid. I would not be his. I roared, a sound that was not human, a guttural snarl that ripped from my throat. I broke free of the chains that bound me, the metal links snapping with a sound like a gunshot. I lunged at him, a whirlwind of newfound rage and power, ready to tear him limb from limb. I would not be his prize. I would not be his vessel. But I was no match for him. He was a seasoned alpha, a warrior, and I was a newborn creature in a new skin. He dodged my clumsy attack with an amused smirk, his hand shooting out and grabbing my wrist. A sudden jarring power surged through his hand, a raw, dominant force that brought me to my knees. The sire bond. The bond that should have been there, the connection that should have forced me to obey him, was his final weapon. But I still felt nothing. The power was there, the dominance, but my mind was my own. I looked up at him, defiance burning in my eyes. His smirk faltered. He looked confused, his brow furrowing. He tried again, a more powerful, dominant surge of will, but still, my mind was my own. My loyalty wasn't to him. It was still to Marcus. "What in the hell?" he snarled, his confusion turning to fury. He backhanded me, a blow that sent me sprawling to the cold floor, the taste of blood in my mouth. "Why aren't you obeying? I am your sire. You will obey me." "The ritual," a voice from the corner of the room said. I looked over, seeing a small, terrified-looking man, one of Victor's followers. Victor's head snapped toward the man. "What ritual?" "The Alpha performed a ritual on her," the man said, his voice trembling. "To keep her from being sired. He knew you would try to use her. He knew she would be your target. He made her immune to the sire bond." The words hit me with a stunning force, a wave of emotion so profound it hurt. Marcus he had known. He had known what could happen to me, and he had done something to protect me, to give me a chance, even if it meant my death. The love, the sacrifice, the loyalty, it was a bond stronger than any ritual, stronger than any Alpha's command. Viktor's face, a mask of arrogant triumph just moments before, twisted into a look of pure, unadulterated rage. He had what he wanted, the hybrid, but he didn't have what he needed most, control. He had the weapon, but he couldn't fire it. I was his captive, but I was still Marcus's mate. I was still my own person. And in the face of his fury, that was a victory greater than any power he could wield. I was a hybrid now, trapped in a cage, but my mind, my will, my heart, they were free. And I knew, with a certainty that burned like a fire in my soul, that Marcus would be coming for me. The hours that followed were a blur of pain and discovery. Viktor, furious at his failure to control me, locked me in a deeper cell, this one reinforced with silver-laced bars that burned my skin when I touched them. My new hybrid nature made me stronger than human, but the silver was still my weakness. I sat in the darkness, trying to understand what I had become. My senses were overwhelming. I could hear conversations happening floors above me, could smell the fear and anger of Viktor's pack members, could feel the vibrations of footsteps through the stone. It was too much, and yet, somehow, I was adapting. I thought of Marcus constantly. Was he hurt? Was he planning a rescue? Or had Viktor's ambush been too effective? The thought of him lying broken somewhere made my chest ache with a pain more intense than any physical wound. "You're adjusting well," a voice said from outside my cell. I looked up to see a woman standing there, her silver hair gleaming in the dim light. She was older, perhaps in her 50s, with kind eyes that seemed out of place in this hellhole. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "My name is Elena. I'm Viktor's advisor, though that's a generous term." She glanced over her shoulder, then moved closer to the bars. "I'm sorry for what he did to you. For what you've become." "Then help me escape," I said urgently. She shook her head sadly. "I can't. Viktor would kill me, and it wouldn't help you anyway. He has guards everywhere. But I can tell you something that might help." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The ritual Marcus performed on you, it did more than just prevent the sire bond. It awakened something in your bloodline, something ancient. You're not just any hybrid, Sophia. You're the first of a new line, one that could change everything." "I don't want to change everything," I whispered. "I just want to go home." "Home is not what it was," Elena said gently. "But that doesn't mean you can't find a new one. Marcus loves you, truly loves you. That kind of bond is rare even among mates. Hold on to that. It will be your strength when the time comes." "When what time comes?" But she was already walking away, her footsteps echoing in the corridor. I was left alone again with my thoughts, with my new reality. I was a hybrid. I was a weapon. But I was also still Sophia, still the girl who loved molecular biology and terrible campus coffee. Viktor could change my body, but he couldn't change my soul. And Marcus was coming. I could feel it in my bones, in the mate bond that thrummed stronger than ever. He was coming, and when he arrived, Viktor would learn that some bonds were stronger than any prophecy. Chapter 5. The world had been a maelstrom of noise and chaos, the sickening crunch of bones, the furious snarls of my pack fighting off Viktor's wolves. I was a storm of a man, a whirlwind of muscle and instinct, protecting my territory, my home. But in the midst of the battle, a single horrifying sound cut through the din: Sophia's scream. It was short, choked off, and it was a sound that ripped through my soul like a blade. My head snapped toward my apartment complex, toward her, but I was surrounded. Two of Viktor's wolves were on me, their yellow eyes filled with a predatory hunger. I dispatched them with a ferocity that surprised even me, my claws tearing through flesh with a sickening ease. But it was too late. I sprinted back to my apartment, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, the scent of her, the scent of pine and rain, fading, replaced by the acrid metallic stink of the traitors who had taken her. My apartment door was broken, splintered wood scattered on the floor. I burst inside, my nostrils flaring, trying to find her scent. It was gone. Replaced by the reek of Viktor and his mangy curs. They hadn't just come to fight, they had come for her. They had come for my mate. A guttural, furious growl tore from my chest, a sound that was more wolf than man. My pack, hearing the primal sound of my rage, came running. My beta, Julian, and my warrior, Atlas, were the first to arrive, their faces grim, their eyes filled with concern. "Alpha," Julian began, his voice low. "The attack is over. We drove them off, but they took heavy losses. So did we." "They took Sophia," I said, my voice a low, dangerous rumble. The words were a brand, a searing truth that settled in my heart. Find her scent. No. We go to war. Julian's eyes widened, a rare look of fear crossing his face. Alpha, we can't. We've lost too many wolves tonight. We need time to regroup, to heal. We don't know where they took her. I don't care, I snarled, my wolf a storm of fury and desperation. They took my mate. My mate. We're not regrouping. We're not healing. We're going after her. We're going to tear down Viktor's lair with our bare hands if we have to. This isn't a rescue mission, Julian. This is a war. And we're not losing. Atlas, my loyal, silent warrior, nodded once, his eyes full of the same fierce resolve that burned inside me. I'll rally the rest of the pack, Alpha. We'll be ready to move in 10 minutes. Julian looked at me, a deep respect and concern in his eyes. We will find her, Alpha. I promise you that. But I couldn't wait. My wolf was screaming inside me, a primal agony of loss and betrayal. The thought of her in Viktor's hands, of that monster touching her, threatening her, it was a fire in my blood. My love for her was the driving force behind my rage, a dangerous, intoxicating cocktail of protection and fury. I shifted, the sickening crack of my bones turning into the silent, effortless flow of my wolf form. The world sharpened, smells and sounds becoming a cacophony of information. I picked up her scent, faint and tainted with the stink of her captors, but it was there. My mate. We moved through the night, a silent, deadly pack of shadows. I was in the lead, my wolf's instincts guiding me. Julian and Atlas were at my flanks, their loyal presence a comfort in the storm of my fury. I could feel the energy of my pack behind me, their shared rage and sorrow a powerful undercurrent to my own. This wasn't a choice for them. I was their Alpha and my mate was their Luna. Her safety was our purpose. The journey was a brutal, relentless race against time. The scent led us to the outskirts of Portland, to an abandoned warehouse district that had long been a battleground for rival packs. Viktor was a coward, but he was a cunning coward. He had taken her to a place where his wolves felt at home, a place he could defend. The closer we got, the stronger the scent of his pack became, a sickening, metallic reek that promised a fight. We stopped on a hill overlooking the compound, a dark collection of warehouses and broken buildings. The air was thick with the scent of Viktor's wolves, a scent of arrogance and overconfidence. They were waiting for us. They were ready for a fight. They've set traps, Julian whispered, his voice a low growl. I can smell them. Tripwires. Deadfalls. He's expecting us to rush in. I looked at the compound, my eyes narrowed, my wolf's instincts working on overdrive. I could feel Sophia's presence, a faint but beautiful scent of pine and rain, a tiny flicker of light in the overwhelming darkness of this place. She was here. She was alive. But for how long? We don't rush in, I said, my voice a low, commanding growl. We hunt. I gave the command to my pack, a series of low growls and gestures that my wolves understood instinctively. We would split up, using the shadows and the darkness to our advantage, taking them out one by one. We were a pack of hunters and they were the prey. The night exploded into violence. I was the first to strike, my claws tearing through the throat of a guard wolf who was standing sentry. A roar of fury and surprise went up from inside the compound. The hunt was on. I could hear the sounds of my pack fighting, the furious snarls and howls, the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground. This was a war for my mate's life and I would not lose. I would tear Viktor apart with my bare hands piece by piece and I would bring Sophia home. I would do anything. I would kill anyone. I was an alpha and my mate was in danger. And the only thing I felt was fury. Pure, unadulterated, vengeful fury. The war had begun, and the only way it would end was with her in my arms. As we fought our way deeper into the compound, I caught glimpses of Viktor's pack. They were vicious, desperate, fighting with the fervor of wolves who knew they were defending their alpha's greatest prize. But we were motivated by something stronger. Loyalty. The unbreakable bond of a true pack. Julian took down 3 wolves single-handedly, his movements precise and deadly. Atlas was a whirlwind of destruction, his battle cries echoing through the warehouse district. But my focus was singular: find Sophia. I followed her scent deeper into the main building, past corridors lined with cells, past rooms that reeked of torture and death. Viktor had built himself a fortress of cruelty, and my mate was somewhere in its dark heart. Finally, I found the stairway leading down into the basement levels. Her scent was stronger here, mixed with something else, something new and powerful that I didn't recognize. My wolf whined, confused and concerned. When I reached the lowest level, I found her cell. The silver-laced bars gleamed in the dim light, and inside I saw her. Sophia. But she was different. Her eyes glowed with an inner light, her posture was stronger, more predatory. She had been turned. My worst fear had come true. Viktor had made her into a hybrid. "Marcus," she whispered, and despite everything, despite the changes, her voice was still hers. "I'm here," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. "I'm getting you out." I grabbed the bars and the silver burned my hands, but I didn't care. I pulled with all my strength and the bars groaned and bent. Another pull and they broke free. Sophia stumbled out and I caught her in my arms. She felt different, stronger, her heartbeat faster, but she was still my mate. Still mine. "He turned me," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, he forced his blood into me and now I'm—" "You're alive," I interrupted fiercely. "That's all that matters. We'll figure out the rest later." But we weren't alone. Viktor's voice echoed through the basement. "How touching. The Alpha comes to rescue his precious mate, only to find she's already mine." He emerged from the shadows, flanked by a dozen of his strongest wolves. His smile was cruel, triumphant. "She may not obey me yet," he continued, "but she's still a hybrid. Still the weapon I need. And now that you're here, Marcus, I can finally end this. Kill you, take her, and claim your territory all in one night." I pushed Sophia behind me, every instinct screaming to protect her. "You'll have to go through me first." "That's exactly what I intend to do." Chapter 6. The world outside my stone prison was a symphony of violence. I could hear the guttural snarls and furious howls of 100 wolves fighting, the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground, the triumphant cries of Marcus's pack. The air, which had been thick with the sour metallic scent of Viktor's wolves, was now infused with the familiar earthy smell of pine and rain. He was here. He had come for me. My heart, a new, stronger, furious organ, hammered against my ribs. I wasn't a human anymore, a simple girl to be rescued. I was a hybrid, a creature of power trapped in a cage. And I had a part to play in this war. I wasn't going to be a damsel in distress. I was going to be a warrior. When Marcus freed me from the cell, when I felt his arms around me again, something inside me settled. The chaos of my transformation, the terror of captivity, it all fell away in the presence of my mate. But there was no time for reunion. Viktor stood before us with his wolves, and I could see in Marcus's stance that he was already injured from the fighting above. He was strong, but he was tired, and Viktor was fresh and eager for battle. "Marcus," I whispered, touching his arm. "You can't fight him alone. Not like this." "I won't let him have you," Marcus growled, his eyes never leaving Viktor. "You won't have to." I stepped out from behind Marcus and I felt the power humming beneath my skin. The hybrid strength that Viktor had given me, intended to make me his weapon, would be his undoing. Viktor's eyes widened slightly as he saw me standing beside Marcus rather than cowering behind him. "You think you can fight, little hybrid? You don't even know how to use your new power." "Then let me learn," I said, and I felt my body respond to my will in ways I'd never imagined. The transformation was different from what Marcus had described of wolf shifting. I didn't fully change. Instead, I felt my body enhance, my muscles strengthening, my senses sharpening even beyond what they'd been. I was something between human and wolf, something new. Viktor snarled and lunged, not at Marcus but at me. He wanted to prove he could control me through force if not through the sire bond. But I was ready. I moved faster than I thought possible, dodging his attack and striking back. My hit connected with his ribs and I heard something crack. Viktor stumbled, genuine surprise crossing his face. Marcus didn't waste the opening. He attacked from the other side and together we fought as one. The mate bond that had drawn us together now synchronized our movements, making us a unified force against Viktor's aggression. Viktor's pack tried to intervene, but Julian and Atlas burst into the basement with reinforcements. The room erupted into all-out warfare, wolves fighting wolves, the clash of dominance and survival filling the air. I focused on Viktor, on the monster who had turned my life upside down, who had stolen my humanity to serve his own ambition. Every fear, every moment of terror I'd experienced since learning about this world, I channeled it all into my attacks. But Viktor was ancient, experienced, and cunning. He adapted quickly to our dual assault, and I saw him smile through the blood on his face. "You think you've won?" he laughed. "You think this changes anything? She's still a hybrid, Marcus. She'll never be fully human again. She'll never be accepted by either world. You've damned her by loving her." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Because part of me knew he was right. I was changed forever. I was neither human nor wolf, but something in between. Marcus's response was to fight harder, his love for me burning in every movement. "She doesn't need to be human or wolf," he snarled. She just needs to be mine. I felt tears sting my eyes even as I continued fighting. Because that was the truth of it. Marcus didn't love me for what I was, but for who I was. And that would never change no matter what Viktor had done to my body. With renewed determination I pressed my advantage. I let my hybrid nature guide me, trusting in the strength it gave me. And when Viktor left an opening, focused too much on Marcus, I struck. My claws, I had claws now, raked across his throat. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to wound, to slow him down. Marcus saw his chance and took it. With a roar that shook the very foundations of the building, he delivered the final blow. A brutal, bone-shattering attack that left Viktor broken and defeated. The war was over. The aftermath was a blur of silence and blood. The surviving wolves of Viktor's pack, their leader defeated, fled into the night, their tails between their legs. My pack, battered but victorious, looked at me with a newfound respect, a silent acknowledgement of the power I now possessed. Marcus walked over to me, his body a mess of cuts and bruises. He took my face in his hands, his thumbs gently caressing my cheek. "You saved me," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "You're amazing, Sophia. You're my Luna. You're everything." I leaned into his touch, tears of relief and love streaming down my face. The world had gone from black and white to a beautiful, violent technicolor reality. My old life was gone. The simple girl who worried about coffee was no more. In her place was a hybrid, a mate, a warrior. We stood among the ruins of Viktor's compound as dawn began to break. Julian approached, his arm wounded but his spirit unbroken. "Alpha, what do we do with Viktor's remaining pack members? Some are asking for mercy, asking to join us." Marcus looked at me and I realized he was asking for my input. As his Luna. As his equal. "Let those who truly want peace join us," I said softly. "But watch them carefully. Trust must be earned." Marcus nodded, pride evident in his eyes. "You heard your Luna. We give them a chance. One chance." As Julian moved away to relay the orders, Marcus pulled me close. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly. "Different," I admitted. "Stronger. Scared. Confused. But not lost. Not anymore." "You're home," he said simply. "You're where you belong." And looking around at the pack, my pack, I realized he was right. This wasn't the life I'd imagined, wasn't the future I'd planned. But it was mine. And I would embrace it. Later, as the sun began to rise, bathing the compound in a soft, orange light, Marcus and I stood together, alone. My pack had given us our space. I looked at him, at the Alpha who had so casually entered my life and destroyed it, and then saved it. "What now?" I asked, my voice a small, reedy thing. "What happens now?" He looked at me, his eyes full of love and a profound, solemn understanding. "The choice is yours, Sophia," he said, his voice a gentle command. "You can go back. I can make arrangements for you to go back to your old life, to a new apartment, a new school. We can erase this. Or you can stay. You can embrace this world, this power, this life. You can stand by my side as my Luna, as my mate. You can be the queen of this pack, of this territory. The choice is yours." My mind flashed back to my old life. The predictable days, the quiet nights, the lonely silence of my small apartment. It was safe, yes, but it was also empty. My mind then flashed to this new life. The danger, the chaos, the constant threat. But it was also full of love, of purpose, of a connection so deep it reached into my very soul. My life wasn't about coffee and textbooks anymore. It was about him, about us, about this new, terrifying, and exhilarating world. The choice was a simple one. "I'm not that girl anymore, Marcus," I said, my voice strong, certain. "My place is here. My life is with you." I took his hand, the feel of his callous skin on mine a perfect fit. My journey had just begun, but I was no longer afraid. I was a hybrid. I was a Luna. I was his mate. And I was finally home. Epilogue, the new dawn. 3 months had passed since the battle at Viktor's compound. 3 months of healing, of learning, of becoming who I was always meant to be. Portland looked different now. I could see it, hear it, smell it in ways I never had before. The city I'd called home for years had revealed itself to be something more. A tapestry of territories and packs, of supernatural beings living hidden among humans. My apartment, our apartment now, had become a true home. Marcus and I had knocked down the wall between 2B and 2C, creating a space that was truly ours. The symbols he'd etched as protection remained, but now they were joined by new ones, marks of the bond we'd forged through fire and blood. I'd returned to my studies, though my focus had shifted. Understanding the biological implications of my transformation had become more than academic interest. It was personal. I was working with Alpha Viktor's former advisor who had defected to our pack, to understand the genetics of hybrids. If there were others like me out there, we needed to find them, to offer them sanctuary before another Viktor could exploit them. The pack had accepted me fully as their Luna. It hadn't been easy. There were wolves who resented a human-turned hybrid in a position of power. But I'd proven myself in battle, and more importantly, I'd proven myself in peace. I listened to their concerns, mediated their disputes, and fought for their well-being alongside Marcus. Julian had become my closest advisor and friend. He taught me about pack politics, about the delicate balance of power that kept the supernatural world hidden from human. Atlas trained me daily, helping me master my hybrid abilities until I could shift partially or fully at will, controlling my strength with precision. But the real change was in how I saw myself. I was no longer the quiet, invisible girl hiding behind textbooks and routine. I was Sophia, Luna of the Portland Territory, hybrid and warrior, mate to the most powerful alpha in the Pacific Northwest. And I was happy. "You're thinking too hard," Marcus said, coming up behind me on our balcony. His arms wrapped around my waist and I leaned back into his warmth. "Just reflecting," I said, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. 3 months ago, I didn't believe in any of this. Now I can't imagine my life any other way. "Regrets?" he asked quietly. I turned in his arms, looking up into those dark eyes that had first captivated me in a laundry room that felt like a lifetime ago. "Not a single one," I said honestly. "This life is hard. It's dangerous. But it's mine. We're mine. And I wouldn't trade that for anything." He kissed me then, slow and deep, and I felt the mate bond pulse between us, stronger than ever. We'd been forged in fire, tested by darkness, and we'd emerged unbreakable. The future stretched before us, uncertain and full of challenges. There were other alphas who would test Marcus's power, other threats to our pack. Rumors had reached us of a council in the east, a gathering of the oldest alphas who were not pleased with the existence of a hybrid Luna. But we would face it together. As mate and mate. As alpha and Luna. As partners in every sense of the word. "Ready for tomorrow's pack meeting?" Marcus asked. "Julian says some of the younger wolves are getting restless. They want to expand our territory." I smiled. "Let them argue their case. That's what pack meetings are for. Democracy in action." Marcus laughed, the sound rich and warm. "You've brought so many changes to this pack. Democracy. Pack meetings where everyone has a voice. Elena's research program. Sometimes I wonder if you're not the real alpha here." "We're partners," I reminded him. "Your strength and my unconventional perspective. Together we're stronger than either of us could be alone." "Together," he agreed and sealed it with another kiss. As night fell over Portland, I felt the pulse of the pack around us. Julian on patrol. Atlas training the younger wolves. Elena in her makeshift laboratory. Families settling in for the evening. Children, both human and wolf, playing in the courtyard. This was my pack. My family. My home. And I would protect it with everything I had. The quiet college girl was gone forever, but in her place was someone stronger, someone fiercer, someone who had found her purpose in the most unexpected of places. I was Sophia, Luna of the Portland Territory. And my story was just beginning. Beautiful soul, if Sophia's transformation has stirred your own heart, if you've walked with her from college student to Luna and felt every heartbeat of her journey, then don't let this connection fade. Subscribe now because the challenges ahead will test everything she and Marcus have built. The Eastern Council is gathering, ancient laws are being invoked, and the true cost of being the first hybrid Luna has yet to be revealed. New threats lurk in shadows you haven't seen, alliances will be forged and broken, and the love that saved them may be the very thing their enemies use to destroy them. Hit that subscribe button, and step with us into the next chapter where the real battle for acceptance, power, and the future of all hybrids begins. This is only the dawn, the storm is still coming. The end.